Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marion Quirk. I'm the Director of Consumer Protection at the Delaware Department of Justice. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the fourth segment in our 10-part series where we discuss the top 10 scams in Delaware. Today, we're talking about imposter scams. Imposter scams was a very highly reported scam last year. It was number 4 on our list. I'd like to say before we get started and I do the introductions that if you have a question while we are presenting, please feel free to type in the chat feature and we will address those questions as soon as we can throughout this presentation. I'd like to introduce 2 of our speakers that are here today. The first is John Bell. John is the Director of Business Relations with the Better Business Bureau, serving Delaware. John's been with the Better Business Bureau for 10 years, and he's partnered with CPU on numerous outreach efforts in the past. Also here with me is Gina Schoenberg. Gina is the Deputy Director of Consumer Protection. She's also the Chair of our Senior Protection Initiative. Gina's been with the Delaware Department of Justice for 9 years and with CPU for 5. So welcome to you both, John and Gina. John, how about we kick it off and start with you?
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having me here today and participating in Consumer Protection Week. So imposter scams is a very broad topic, and imposter scam is something that I believe everybody has heard of at least a little bit. It's basically any time that a scammer or a fraudster pretends to be a well-known company, a government agency, or a brand that's a household name. The idea is basic psychology. Once you believe that you're talking to someone that you trust, you're more likely to do what they ask. It's the same reason when you see lights and sirens behind your car, you pull over. You do what you do when you would see a police officer behind you. If a scammer can convince you that they are your bank, or that they are the IRS, or that they're your boss, then you are going to do what they ask. And so that's the danger, is that they can convince you to treat them as someone that you would do, things for that you should not do with a scammer. So who do they impersonate? The top 10 list is, it's a who's who of the major household names and brands in the US. According to BBB's research, the number 1 are the broadest government agencies. Social Security Administration, number 1. The IRS, but they're also keen to impersonate brands like Publishers Clearinghouse. It's always great to tell somebody they've won $100,000 or $1 million or $10 million. That gets people excited to answer them. They love to impersonate tech companies, Microsoft, Apple. They would love for you to believe that there is a problem with your computer that they've identified that they can fix for you, because those brands have pretty well-known credibility. They impersonate Amazon and any online marketplaces, Medicare. They impersonate, Target, Walmart. Better Business Bureau is a big target of theirs. Business gets a email saying that there's a complaint from BBB, they probably open the attachment. So in all ways, the scams operate the same way, where they're trying to get you to do something that you shouldn't, based on you believing who they are. And they're getting very sophisticated. We saw a scam recently where a consumer got an email addressed to them by name from Amazon branding, Amazon logo. It was, precise example of an Amazon email. And it said, hey, this is payment confirmation of your recent order. Your $5,100 detailed below should be arriving in 3 days. If you didn't place this order, please call this phone number. It is a fantastically done email. There are no grammar errors. There are no spelling mistakes. It addresses the consumer by their name. And, also spooks them into thinking, my God, I didn't order $5,200 worth of electronics. So what do? They call the phone number. Phone number goes to the scammers, but the scammers answer the phone. Yep, this is Amazon. Well, yeah, we can look into that, but first I need to make sure you are who you say you are. Can you please validate your name, your date of birth, your social, your login, whatever they can get from you, And that's the common theme. Any of your personally identifiable information, any payment information or credit card information they can get for you is a win for them. They do this a lot by phishing, but they also do it by text message. There's a thing called business email compromise. With the state of remote working, what happens is you get a text message or an email that is ostensibly from your boss. And look, I don't know about you, but if my boss asked me to send them some documents or to, make a payment somewhere or to do something like that, I'd probably do it. They especially love to target new employees because new employees want to make a good impression. So they do it super fast. But you've got to validate, you've got to double check, and you've got to understand that, email addresses can be spoofed. One of the big problems we see is with caller ID being spoofed. Caller ID is a very dangerous tool because people don't understand how it works, basically. So a scammer can put in any number they want into caller ID. The way I explain it is this. When you mail a letter to someone, those of us who still mail letters to people, in the return address field, you can write whatever you want. I can write that the return address is Santa Claus at the North Pole. The post office will deliver that letter just the same. It's the same thing with caller ID. The people making the call are the ones who input the caller ID. And so if you get a call that says it's PNC Bank on your caller ID, you may believe it's PNC Bank, but that caller ID is not to be trusted. We had a scam where a business got a call from Delmarva Power. Delmarva Power on the phone caller ID says, oh yeah, I'm a lineman for Delmarva Power. I got a work order in hand to shut your power down because you're past due on a bill. Well, the business owner ran a karate dojo. He's, got looking at his classes starting in 5 minutes. It's getting dark out. Most people, it's kind of hard to do karate in the dark unless you're really, really good at it. So he made the payment. You can't believe the things in your caller ID. You can't believe emails that show up in your inbox. And you've got to be very careful when anyone contacts you. Those are the things that we see in the tips that we like to share. Gina, over to you.
Thanks, John. And that's all such excellent advice. And what I'm hearing from you and what I see in my work every day is that imposter scams in particular are meant to elicit a strong emotional response from us, no matter the variation. I was working the other day. I got a frantic call from my mother-in-law. She, reported that she had just been victimized by, I guess, a variation of, it was really a parent scam, like the grandparent scam. She gets a call and she's, she thinks it is my husband. He's hysterical. He says that, he's been in a car accident and the police have hauled him away. And so, very intelligent woman, as are, many victims. So number one, intelligence doesn't matter. When you think that someone that you love and care about is in danger of being harmed or in danger with the law, our common sense, our ability to rationalize, it falls to the wayside because the scammers have now gotten us into emergency response mode. So no matter what the variation of the scam is, John, you said it, it is critically important to take a breath and independently verify what's going on in a particular situation. Thank goodness cooler heads prevailed, and my mother-in-law decided that she was going to call my husband, and check on him. And he said, "Mom, no, I'm doing great." But she was ready to send money wherever she needed to send money, go out, potentially put herself out into public, into harm's way physically. And she was ready to do what she needed to do to help her son. And that's what scam artists are counting on. It's critically important to realize that we're vulnerable at our front door, over the phone, on the internet, and through the mail. This is not sort of a one medium target here. The con artists are really coming at us in all directions, and they're doing that because it's $1 billion industry. So if you're getting phone calls, we want to encourage you in particular with phone calls, write down any information that you can, the time of day. John mentioned spoofing, but so we want you to take down the phone number too, understanding that may not be an actual number they're calling from. We at the Department of Justice want to know the exact phone number, the time of day, how the number appeared on your caller ID, so that we can use our tools to run a search on that. We are not always able to ultimately find the perpetrator, but we work with our federal partners to pass that information on, get information out to the public, potentially prevent these numbers from being used to victimize other people. So it's critically important that if you receive a call like this and you're victimized in this way, that you report it to the Department of Justice and take down that critical information. I know that we're putting links to reach us into the chat feature. Also want to encourage you to utilize the Internet Crimes Complaint Center, IC3, that we've been talking about all week. That's another very good resource. And then consider utilizing tools through your service provider, your phone service provider. A lot of companies are now offering for free that they'll block spoofed or manufactured phone numbers. So these are all tools that are developing and that we can utilize. You know, I get a lot of commentary about, I'm on the do not call registry and I'm still getting these calls. And, you know, I say to people, law abiding citizens pay attention to the do not call registry. You know, a con artist doesn't care what the law says and what registry you're on. That said, I do highly recommend that you utilize the do not call registry because it will reduce phone calls that we receive. And all of this is vitally important at any age, but for any of us. But I do want to note that our seniors are particularly vulnerable. And it's important that we're sharing this information both with one another and with the older adults in our life. You know, if they're hearing about this information from us or utilizing social media, you know, it really is true. Knowledge is power. The more we talk about this stuff, the more we educate one another, you know, the safer we'll all be. But our seniors are particularly vulnerable over the phone, using the internet, and even through the mail. So what happens if you file a report with the Consumer Protection Unit? We are not always able to take action in every complaint, but we log every complaint. The information that you provide, we use to track trends, target our outreach efforts. We very often make referrals to our federal partners. So a lot of times I hear, well, if I report it, you know, sometimes people tell me they can't do anything for me. Don't let that discourage you. Number one, count yourself lucky if you weren't victimized and there didn't money go out the door, you weren't otherwise harmed. But then help us help everyone else by tracking this information and doing what we can to hopefully stop these con artists in their tracks. Marion, have we gotten any questions in the chat?
We don't yet have any questions in the chat. So I encourage folks, if you have questions, feel free to type those in the chat and we will be able to answer them for you. Thank you, John and Gina. The information you've provided is very helpful. What are your, John, best consumer tips you can offer folks that are listening and watching?
Great question. And it's definitely one of the number one things that we try to pass on as a tip is what Gina said, is that you've got to share this information with your family and friends. You've got to pass on the scams that have targeted you or that you've learned about in a workshop like this, because you know, there's no way to be completely bulletproof. There's no way to be 100% immune to being targeted by scams. Some of the biggest demographics we see losing money to scams are younger consumers. You know, as I talk to your children, certainly people losing the most money are older Americans, but the victimization range runs the gamut. So pass on the things that you hear about and learn about. And really, you've got to have an extra ounce of skepticism. You know, that the scammers are making a lot of money and they're getting much more hands-on. They're really taking the time to get things right. Okay, like the broken email or the broken English emails, the Nigerian bank scams that everybody looks at and laughs at. Those are the junior varsity scammers, folks. The scammers that are making the most money, look, they've got access to Grammarly. They can use spell check, and a lot of them are native English speakers. They put a lot of time in it. We've seen employment scam examples where they're operating fake companies and they're trying to get you to apply there because on an application, your name, your social, your date of birth, bank account number, maybe for direct deposit. They're putting people through multiple rounds of online interviews, making you really work for it. Jerks. But you've got to be skeptical and you've got to do your research. So those are the things we pass on, is to really validate and kick the tires on anything that you might be involved with where you're not going to meet somebody face to face, to really make sure that you're maximizing the chances that you are working with somebody reputable.
Thank you, John. Those are really helpful tips. Gina, how about you? What are some important consumer tips that you have to share?
Yeah, so I think, like we've been saying, we could talk about the variations of these scams all day, but there are some red flags that no matter what you're being told, you can kind of think of these as just, again, big red flags that something is amiss. So if you don't know what the communication is referencing, whether it's Amazon saying you've ordered 50,000, bottles of Clorox, or your bank saying that there's been a compromise, any communication that you don't know what it's referencing, that's a red flag. A call to action, immediate action. So like that grandparent scam, asking for information or money is a huge red flag. Threatening you is a red flag. And then offers that are too good to be true. If it's too good to be true, we like to say over here in the consumer protection world that it's probably a scam. So, like John was saying, press pause if you see any of these red flags and independently verify. So come out of the communication. If Amazon is reaching out to you and telling you that your order for the 50,000 Clorox wipes for, $10,000 is on its way, go to your account and find independently verified contact for Amazon and reach out to Amazon that way. So don't use the communication itself to reach out to the entity that they're portraying to be. And this is just another added layer of protection for you to do your homework. Be like my mother-in-law. She was able to calm down, when she thought that her son was at risk. And the first thing she did was to call him. These are the steps that we can take to, really be suspicious if you're being put in a situation where your emotions are high. Take a deep breath and do that homework. And I do just want to give a caution that we are in tax season. Many of you are aware of the IRS scam. It's been around for years, and that is because it is very successful. Millions of dollars are lost every year to the IRS scam, and we are at that season where we will see it occurring again. And that has many variations as well. So it could be a communication saying that, you have done something wrong and that you owe a tax debt. It could be that someone, files and receives your refund and that you're a victim of identity theft. So it's time to be on high alert and make sure that if you have any questions that you contact the IRS directly. Do not, the IRS will not threaten to arrest you. They will not threaten to harm you. They're not going to come out to your home. So just keep those things in mind and be hyper vigilant this time of year.
Thank you, Gina and John. Very, very helpful to identify tips and also the red flags to look out for. John, if you could just run through the process for filing a complaint in the Better Business Bureau with you guys and what a consumer could expect.
Right on. Absolutely, Marion. So the idea with BBB is we are a nonprofit organization. We are here to try to help cooler heads prevail. Our goal is to try to help consumers who have a problem with a product or service with a business, and to basically help the business do the right thing, to publicize if a business did do the right thing. And that is a great opportunity. You can file a complaint on bbb.org against a business you've had a marketplace transaction in. We're not an enforcement agency, right? So we are a good first step because we can try to help the business resolve things with you directly, but this doesn't remove your ability to escalate it by filing with the Attorney General if enforcement action is needed. So bbb.org has got a place. You put in a complaint, you just put in the situation, as many supporting documents as you can submit, the type of service you hired, the amount of money, and most importantly, your ideal resolution. Try to think of what would be fair, because there's a lot of times, people are just angry and they they aren't really thinking about what's an appropriate outcome. So, you know, we do see a lot, unfortunately, of complaints that come in from consumers that just have an axe to grind, and that's not always productive. So we invite people to submit a complaint if they think that there's a way that a business could come to a compromise and settle something in an equitable fashion. But that's where it is, bbb.org, and it is an opportunity to help sort of situate things before it has to escalate to law enforcement.
Thank you, John. Gina, you spoke a little bit earlier about the complaints that we receive. Do you have more to add on our process and that for receiving and handling complaints?
Sure. So I would say if you are not, when we receive a consumer complaint, every consumer complaint gets tracked internally, as I said, as well, and also through our national databases. If you are not victimized in the sense that you have not lost money or been otherwise harmed, we will just track the complaint. Unfortunately, with the number of incidents that occur, you know, we all have examples in our own life. This is literally happening in the millions, if not billions. You know, this is happening all over the country and the world. So we cannot take, you know, action on every complaint. But if you have been harmed, if you have lost money, we will have a special investigator reach out to you and collect information and see what we can do. The extent of our ability to help will be increased the sooner you contact us. So time really is of the essence here, especially if you've lost money. Getting intervention from our office as soon as possible, like within minutes, or if not hours, and certainly within a day or a day is critical. Again, take down that relevant information if it's a phone call, but also email. Make sure you're saving all of these communications so that you can submit that to a special investigator. Again, if you have been victimized and there has been loss, one of our special investigators will reach out to you.
Thank you, Gina. And we really appreciate, John, you joining us for another one of our segments. They're incredibly informative, and we do so appreciate that. We are having our 5th segment tomorrow at 10 a.m. John will be joining us again, and we are going to be talking about auto-related scams. John will be joined by a special investigator at the DOJ, Patrick Malone. So we look forward to seeing you again, John, tomorrow. I just wanted to remind folks that we are also having a Twitter event tomorrow afternoon at 4. We are going to be sharing the questions, resources, answer to those questions with respect to, you know, the first half of this week. So please join that and take a look at what we're offering. We do really appreciate your time, and I'm sure there are many, many informative and helpful tips and information that you learned today. Thank you, John and Gina. We really appreciate it, and take care, everybody.
Thank you.